Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Rundown. Want to go over the MLB games scheduled for Monday, May 20th, 2024. And if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in the MLB, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Monday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Chicago White Sox taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Jose Barrios and Eric Fedde are your starters. We're getting a really good price here with Chicago in this game with Eric Fedde, 4-0 with a 2.6 ERA. He's in great form, giving up 2 earned runs or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts. His strikeout numbers right around a strikeout per inning. The walks have been held to a minimum, especially recently. He's had no walks in 4 of his last 5 games. He just had really that one bad start against St. Louis where he went 4 1/3. He had the 5 walks, 5 earned runs, but it was still a White Sox win. In fact, the White Sox, who are only have 14 wins on the season, they've won each of his last 4 games. So he's actually been a really profitable pitcher in Major League Baseball this year. And with Barrios not in great form, giving up 2 home runs or more in the last 2 games and 6 home runs combined in the last 4 starts, I think that there's value here with Chicago in this one. I'm going to take the Chicago White Sox plus the 1.5 runs and on the money line in this game. Next up, the New York Mets taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Tylor Megill and Ben Lively are your starters. Megill only had 1 start before his injury. It was on March 31st. He pitched well in that game against Milwaukee, and it was a disappointment to see him go down with the injury. And the Mets were really careful in terms of when to bring him back. He had a pretty good sample size in the minor leagues in terms of his rehab starts, and he pitched really well in those games. So while it's a tough matchup against the Guardians, I still think that Megill is the much better option to start this game. He's got Ben Lively on the other side starting to regress in a big way. He gave up 3 home runs in that last start to the Rangers. They let him off the hook in that one. I mean, it was 3 solo home runs, but they also had some opportunities. They had 3 walks in that game against Lively, and they weren't able to really put the crooked number up against them. And really, no team's been able to do so yet. But he's given up sharp contact. The walks are now starting to pile up. He's had 9 walks his last 3 starts combined. His strikeout numbers starting to dip after a great start to the year, but we knew his strikeout numbers weren't going to be great because he's never really been a strikeout guy, really, in the minor leagues or the major leagues, and his whiff and chase rate are well below league average. So for me, while the Mets bullpen's been a little bit dicey recently, I think they have such a big advantage in terms of starting pitching matchup that I'm willing to take the Mets in the full game and in the first 5 innings as well on the money line. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Miami Marlins. Joe Ross and Ryan Weathers are your starters. The Brewers have been very hot and cold when it comes to hitting left-handed pitching in the last couple of years, but in the month of May, they are red hot against lefties. They are top 5 in both team OPS and isolated power against southpaws. And, Ryan Weathers, he's pitched really well recently, but all those games were on the road in the month of May, at least so far. And at home at Lone Depot Park, he's got that ERA above 7. So I do worry about him here. And, Joe Ross, the big concern I had with this game going into the season was the walks, because that's what's hurt him in his career at the major league level is, a lot of free passes, but really, it hasn't been that bad, especially recently. I mean, he's given up 1 walk, 2, 0 against the Cubs. Had that one game against the Yankees with 3, and that was his worst start. No surprise there. At first, it's the Yankees, great lineup, but also the Yankees have one of the highest walk percentages in Major League Baseball against right-handed pitching, while the Marlins, so far in the month of May, against right-handed pitching, obviously their OPS and isolated power numbers aren't great, but their walk percentage is at 6.5%, the 4th lowest. So I think it's a good matchup here for Joe Ross. I think it's a good matchup for the Brewers' bats. We know Milwaukee's got a much better bullpen, so give me the Brewers in this game on the money line. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the Minnesota Twins. We're going to see Pablo Lopez and Mitchell Parker as your starters. The Nationals are struggling right now. They're 1-7 in their last 8 games, but it's not really because of the pitching. On Sunday it was, they gave up 11 runs, but in the last 8 games, they've only scored more than 3 runs twice in that stretch. So we saw a couple of shutouts against the White Sox, the beginning of that series against Philadelphia. They didn't do much offensively. So I worry about this Nationals offense, especially facing Pablo Lopez, who, yes, he struggled a bit in that last game against the Yankees, but that's also the Yankees, one of the best lineups, if not the best lineup, against right-handed pitching this season. Now you're facing the Nationals. I think Lopez has been one of the more unlucky pitchers in baseball this year. I think it's a good matchup for him to put together 6-7 strong innings. Mitchell Parker's pitched well for Washington in the early, it's a small sample size in terms of his major league career, but he's got 32 innings of work and a 3.09 ERA. Facing a Twins lineup, it's also not been great recently, especially against lefties. So I'm going to go with the under here in Washington, Minnesota. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Tanner Houck and Taj Bradley are your starters. Yeah, we saw the same pitching matchup last week. We actually took the Rays in that game. They won it for us 4-3. Looks like it'd be simple to take Tampa Bay in this spot as well. Nothing really changing too much. But I actually like the other side in this game. Taj Bradley concerns me a little bit in this spot because it's a very small sample size. I'll start by saying that. So things are going to change quite a bit. But right now, Bradley has that ERA solid at 2.45, but the expected ERA is above 7 because he's given up a lot of sharp contact. Gave up the home run that last game to Boston. And when you look at the exit velocity that he's given up, it is very, very steep right now. So I worry about that. The Red Sox numbers against righties in terms of the isolated power is very, very strong in the month of May. We saw them have like a breakout game offensively in the final game of that series with St. Louis scoring 11 runs in the victory. So I think Bradley could be in trouble here. I think the Red Sox do get to him for quite a few runs early, and I wouldn't be surprised to see guys like Devers or O'Neill, who's hitting the ball very well right now, hit a home run in this game. So look at those home run props. But Tanner Houck pitched well in that game against the Rays. While it wasn't good enough for the Red Sox to win. It was 5 2/3 innings of 1 earned run baseball, an error. Some bad defense cost a couple of unearned runs, but 7 strikeouts in that one, no home runs given up. He's only given up 1 home run this entire season. For a guy like Houck who pitches at Fenway Park, it's pretty impressive. 58 innings of work, 57 strikeouts. So I'm going to go with the Boston Red Sox in this game on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the New York Yankees. Logan Gilbert and Marcus Stroman are your starters. Logan Gilbert's only had 1 start in his career at Yankee Stadium. It was 5 1/3 innings, 6 earned runs, 3 home runs, and 4 walks. So a 10.13 ERA. And in his career against New York, in 20 1/3 innings, he's got that ERA just below 8. So he has struggled against the Yankees. He was not great in that in his only Yankee Stadium start. And with how well the Yankees are hitting the ball right now, with Gilbert's struggles with the home run ball recently, giving up at least 1 in 3 of his last 4, including his last 2 against the Royals and Twins, where he gave up 11 earned runs combined in those starts. I think the Yankees get to him for a few runs early, but I also think Seattle competes here offensively against Marcus Stroman. I've not been impressed with Stroman recently. Now, the last game against Minnesota was a step in the right direction, but he still had 3 walks in that one, only 2 strikeouts, and he gave up a lot of sharp contact early in that outing. And that's a Twins lineup that's not been great at all in the last week or so after, an amazing start to the month of May and an ending to April. But I think Seattle competes here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think that if I was to look at a side in this game, it'd be the Mariners on the money line because of the price we're getting. But I'm going to go with the over as well in this game. Next up, the Detroit Tigers taking on the Kansas City Royals. Reese Olson and Michael Wacha are your starters. The Tigers have been a pretty good road team this year, but it is really tough to beat the Royals at home where they're 10 games above 500 now, and they're actually 10 games above 500 overall this season, the first time since 2015. So Kansas City having a pretty exciting start to the year. Michael Wacha has not been great, overall this season, a 4.71 ERA, but he is trending in the right direction. Back-to-back quality starts in his last 2 games, both of those wins and run line covers for the Royals. So, he's, like I said, trending in the right direction. You got a Royals team that's been crushing the ball at home. I mean, the A's really didn't have much of a chance in that series. At least it looked like that as the Royals dominated. And then Reese Olson on the other side, he's pitched well himself, but the Tigers have just not been able to back him up this year. I mean, even last game, 8 innings of shutout baseball. They lose the game in extra innings, 1-0. So, back-to-back now losses for the Tigers in extra innings with Olson on the mound. He's been excellent, but he doesn't get the support run-wise or the bullpen. And he's only the Tigers have only won 1 of his starts this year. They're 1-7 this year. They even lost the game against Kansas City where he went 7 innings of 1-run ball, and the Royals still somehow win 8-0 the final score. So I got to go with the Kansas City Royals in this game on the money line and run line. Next up, we see the Baltimore Orioles taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Dean Kramer and Sonny Gray are your starters. I think the Cardinals, when you look at this team, obviously Sunday's performance was, pretty miserable, but they won the first 2 games of that series against the Red Sox. They scored 17 runs along the way. The previous series against the Angels, who have also been playing pretty good baseball, they just took the series against the Rangers. The Cardinals scored 17 runs in the first 2 games of that series. They won that series on the road. So I think St. Louis is also trending in the right direction. Their offense has been a lot better against righties. Dean Kramer, he's been a little bit inconsistent this year. He had 10 strikeouts in that last game against Arizona, but still gave up 6 runs, so he's kind of all over the place right now. And with Sonny Gray on the other side for St. Louis and a really good bullpen, I think the Cardinals are definitely worth the play here. Give me the Cardinals on the money line in this one. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Houston Astros. Reed Detmers and Framber Valdez are your starters. We may be able to take a shot with LA in another game in this series, but this is just not that situation in my opinion. I think the Astros on the run line are the play, as Framber's in great form. Reed Detmers is not. He's struggling right now. And Detmers has not pitched well against the Astros in his career, especially last year. Really struggled against Houston. We know the Astros hit lefties very well. Now, Framber hasn't been untouchable against the Angels in his career, but he does have a strikeout rate above 32%, which is pretty steep. And I think he'll pitch well in this game. And even if the Astros don't do a ton of damage on Detmers, they have that Angels bullpen, that I think they'll be able to get to in the end. So I'm going to go to Houston Astros and lay the 1.5 runs at home. Next up, we see the final game for Monday's card. The Arizona Diamondbacks and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Slade Cecconi and Gavin Stone are your starters. I'm going to go with the Dodgers here and lay the 1.5 runs. I don't love it because of the price, but Gavin Stone's been a lot better recently since he was at the beginning of the season, where he had a pretty steep ERA, but now his last 5 games, 2 earned runs or fewer in all those starts. 4-1 Dodgers are in those games. I like to see the strikeout numbers go up a little bit. They're starting to dip a little bit in the last couple of games, but I still think he's a much better option with Cecconi struggling. 6 earned runs that last start given up to the Reds. Dodgers, have crushed right into pitching this season. I think LA is a much better bullpen. So give me the Dodgers laying the 1.5 runs at Dodger Stadium. And that's it. Those are the games for Monday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. But don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.